Hello everybody, welcome to the class today. I'm Nolan Clark, and in this class we're going to be drawing a close-up of a beautiful rose. It's really good shading practice, so follow along and I'll show you how we do that. Fantastic. I found this photo on Pixabay and it was just calling out to be drawn. Like I said, it's really good shading practice. Lots and lots of shadings going on here. So if you're just getting started with drawing and you're looking to improve your shadings, well, this is definitely the class for you. Alrighty, so if you're a patron, you can go and download the reference material for the class. The link is in the video description. There's the color photograph, there's a grayscale version, and then there's a sketch template as well. So I'm working on just a standard A4 sheet of photocopy paper today. What you're looking for with a drawing like this, with lots of shadings and nice smooth shadings, what you're looking for is also just a smooth piece of paper. You don't want too much texture on the paper, because otherwise you're going to battle to get, you're going to have to do all sorts of little shadings to compensate for the texture of the paper, because the texture creates its own little highlights and shadows. So a nice smooth shading is what you're looking for today. And I haven't packed out too much equipment, to be honest. I've got my Tombow eraser. I've got a H and a 2H pencil, and then an 8B pencil, and then a 9XB pencil for ink case, and then my my brush just to flick away any dust, crumbs or whatever, and then of course trusty old Kneaded Eraser, can't do without that guy. And then for the shadings, what I have got here is just this is just a makeup blending sponge. It works super well for doing shadings. Then I've also got just a sheet of paper. Now on this paper I've taken just 9B graphite and I've covered him up with that, so that I can take this piece of cloth. So this is just a soft piece of t-shirting material. You can now rub over this and it picks up some of that loose graphite, and you can physically shade using the soft cloth. So we're going to shade using this and blending stumps. So I've got two blending stumps. I've got the sharp point one, and then one with a bit of a flatter point, like that. So if you want to know how to make these guys, there is a link to a video on YouTube. It's in the description below. You can go and take a look at that. They're really simple to make. And it means you don't have to go and buy any of your own. And then the last bit of equipment I've got is my trusty old graphite dust. So all I've done is just taken a graphite 9B graphite pencil and then shaved it down to form a fine powder. I've just shaved it down using some sandpaper. So what I'll be doing today is, when I'm using the cloth, I'll just be either rubbing over here if I want a light tonal value, and if I want a darker tonal value I'm going to dip into there, and then I'm going to draw with that. And then when I'm using the sponge, I'll also just dip into there and draw with that. But I'll show you all those things as we go along. Alright, so when you're working with a drawing like this, where do you even start? It's so complex. Do you start at the center, work your way out? Do you start on the outside, work your way in? What I actually tend to do is, I usually tend to start on the outside, work my way in, but also being right-handed, I tend to start on the left-hand side and I'm going to work my way towards the right. And that way I'm not working over areas that are covered in graphite, because that just means your hands are going to get dirty. So to stop my hands from getting dirty, if I do work over an area that is full of graphite dust, I use some transparency paper. So this is just a sheet of tracing paper. You get them in like a book form at your local stationery store. So then you can lay your hand on that. What's nice is because that's clear, you can still see what's below, so it doesn't obscure your ability to judge all the tonal values and stuff from the areas around it. Then obviously I also like to start working from the back, and you work your way forward. So in this case I'll do the background over there, then this guy, then this guy, then this guy, and I'm going to gradually work my way in, and then also work my way that way. So initially you've got nice large shadings and stuff to do, and then they get finer and finer and finer. Alrighty, let's get going. So I have now just transferred the outlines to my drawing paper. You can see them quite prominently there. So to get this background over here, you can see it's as good as black. So I'm going to take my graphite dust, and I'm going to dip this blending sponge into there. So it's really well loaded. Just on that little area of the tip, you can see there where it's a little bit shiny. Let me maybe go, and yeah, I'll stick with this view for now. And now you can just rub it on. What's nice about the blending sponge is it gives you nice smooth tonal values that you can work with. So let me go just to a side view here for a minute. Let's maybe put the reference photo up in the corner there. Because it's got those nice little sharp point there like that, I can come easily right up against the line, get myself a nice accurate silhouette. Of that background over there. You see that? Okay, let's go back to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that down, get that good silhouette over there. And then just work it outwards. Just in a circular motion like this. That'll give you a nice even coating, and you can just continue just building it up, building it up, building it up. Until you're happy with the tonal value. So obviously now the more you work this in, the darker it becomes, because now that graphite dust goes into the weave of the paper and fills up all those little gaps, those humps and bumps. And the longer you go over it, the more solid it becomes. But now obviously as you go along, gradually that, because the weave is filling up, you are also now removing your ability to erase. So just, if you do need to erase into an area that needs to be dark, what I suggest you do then is you do a bit, erase that little bit, and then add darker again, and then erase that little area again. And so you go on. Luckily today we don't need to. I'm just going to wipe off all that excess dust, graphite dust over there, so that you can see what it looks like. Okay, so the next one up is, can you see it's a much lighter, and now we've been working with super dark. So what I do is I'll just take just a spare sheet of paper like this, which I keep on the one side while I'm drawing, because this thing is now loaded with that graphite dust, and we don't want to be drawing really dark now. So I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to just literally just smash it against the paper. Look there, can you see there? So it now gets rid of all that excess graphite dust. So don't throw it away, just take this and add it back into the pile so it doesn't go to waste. And now you can also test yourself. I'll often have you do little tests like this to make sure that the tonal value that I'm getting, because of the amount of graphite that's still left in here, is what I want it to be. And it does seem to be roughly that tonal value now. So what we'll do here is, I always start by the darkest area on a petal, and I'll work my way towards the lighter areas, simply because you're never 100% sure how much graphite is going to come down and onto the paper from the sponge, and how dark that graphite is going to be. And I'm adding absolutely no pressure onto the sponge. I'm just letting it gently wipe over, and that way it also allows me to have a bit more control, because you can see here on this outside bit it's darker and goes dark here towards the bottom. So what I'm using mostly at this stage is this little soft rounded bit, until I want to get right up against the line or so. Then I'll use the tip. But most of the time I'm just using that little side edge over there. So like here, can you see here, this little edge of the of this petal is a little bit darker than, let's say, over there, because what's happening is you've got overlapping. So let's take 2 sheets of paper. Let's take these guys. When this one overlaps that one, it casts a shadow over there. So if I do this, can you see it gets a little bit darker over there? The same, little bit darker, because of that cast shadow. And the same thing is happening here. Because of the overlapping, this guy is casting a shadow on that guy. So this is how you show that this guy is standing higher up than the other one, is by those little cast shadows and things. So I'm going to use the tip of that blender of mine to come right up against the top petal and get that darker. And then as I go along, I'm just going to fade it outwards like this. Go from there, the tip, and just work my way outwards. Here's just a little bit of a kink in that. in that petal over there. So he's a little bit darker. So just rub that in. And the same thing happens over here. You've got, let's get that shadow in this area. Get some tonal value. And there's another little darker patch. I'm just using the tip of this blender. That'll give me that over there. Okay, so as we come over here, it's going lighter and lighter. So I'm just adding less and less strokes over this. And then this petal over here, it ends over there. And then you have this guy behind it. That's why you've got that darker over there. But yeah, it's just a little piece there. We may as well continue with the same. So if your sponge does now run out of graphite, at this stage, because we're working with really light values, you don't really want to tip into there. So that's when this guy, where you've rubbed over your pencil, comes in handy. So now you're just picking up this, which is a lot less graphite than that. And it's not going to give you such dark tonal values either. So I'm going to start here just on this edge, because we want to get a rounding over there to show that that petal is rounding over like this. So can you see what happens? The front of it is lighter, and as it comes around, it gets darker. So I'm just using the absolute tip of the sponge, get that little edge in there, and then I work it outwards towards the outside. And as I go up, less and less and less, so it goes gradually lighter and lighter. So that way you're getting a shading over there. Let me take that logo away just for a few minutes. Yeah, so that one is as good as done. Let's tackle this guy over here. So I'm going to start with the darkest edge. Here where the shadow is being cast, I'm going to put him in. And I'm going to work him out to where things are lighter. Yeah, it's quite light, so I think I may not even add any graphite over there. But what has happened over there is now, as we were doing this shadow, you've gone over the line. So I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and just squeeze it like that, just to give me just a rounded edge like that. See there? And I'm going to come in here and just re-establish that edge. Like that. So now sometimes, can you see, you find places like this where it's a little bit, the edges are a little bit harsh. You don't have a nice blending over there. There must be just a smooth fading out. So that's when you'll come back in with your pencil. Very gently, without any pressure. And just complete that little shading over there. Just make him fade away. And you get rid of that line. So everything that we're doing over here is quite gentle. And low contrast at the moment. All the high contrast stuff is coming up with the other petals. So things are just nice and easy like that. Now what I'll also do is I'll just take just a spare cloth. So this is just an old piece of t-shirting material. You can see it's well used already. You just put your finger inside, and now you can just gently soften all these shadings out. Then it gets rid of all those little small imperfections and stuff and makes it look smoother. Alrighty, so over here I can see it does need to go even darker than that. See there? So I'm going to take my my H pencil, which is this guy over here. Maybe I can overlay that for a minute. So this is my H pencil. Without any pressure whatsoever. Just coming into that corner there where it needs to be dark. And I'm just going to gradually work outwards like this. The important thing that I'm working on is getting where this petal ends and that one starts, getting that to be a sharp line. One of the most important things about drawing roses is that you have that you get your lost and found lines right. So what on earth is a lost and a found line? A found line is a sharp edge. So let's go to this photo over here. Can you see here? That edge over there is nice and sharp. There's a good contrast between this petal and the petal behind it. But look what's happening to this line. As it curls in over here, less light can get to it, and it eventually it's also there's more distance over here, and as that distance becomes less and less and less and less and less, eventually they touch, and from there on they're basically running at the same angle, and because they're at the same angle, they're going to be the same color. So you're going to find you constantly have lost and found lines. Areas where you have nice sharp edges. Those sharp edges like that show you distance. And you're going to have lost lines that show you things are touching each other. So you have to keep looking out for those lost and found lines. So here, by getting this guy dark and leaving that guy lighter, that's going to show us that lost and found line over there, or in this case it'll be a found line. So I'm going to just darken all of this up all the way along that edge of the petal. Just fade him out. In other words, if you haven't got the full shading using your sponge, then you go over to the pencil. But most of the time, you're about to use your sponge for all these shadings. And it's going to save you a lot of time on these outside petals. Alrighty, I think that guy should be okay there for now. So let's move on to that guy over there. So the first thing that I want to do now is when you're working from the one petal to the next is you want to compare their tonal values. If I add tonal value to this guy now, it still needs to be lighter than that guy over there. So I can already tell that I'm not going to be able to add much tonal value there, simply because this one here is too light. I haven't left myself enough contrast for the front of, for the top petal. So I'm first going to have to darken this guy up. I may even darken him up just a little bit more than he needs to be. Specifically so that I can get that guy in over there. Alright, so now let's add this guy in. So I'm going to start all the way up against that sharp edge, just using the tip of the sponge. In other words, right up against this guy's edge over here, because I can see that edge over there needs to be light. So just very gently work that in over there. You'd be surprised how fine you can work with just the tip of the sponge. It's quite incredible, really. Okay, so I'll get that in there as best I can. We may as well go around here as well. Very gentle touch. So with this petal over here, he's curling over. He's coming up and then he's curling over like this. So I'm adding this shadow in the center. In other words, he's going to shade lighter to the left and to the right, to the top and to the bottom. Here he's tucking in. So as he tucks in, he gets less light, so he needs to go darker. So I'll flick from here outwards. So that there where I start is automatically going to go darker. Alright, so we can see that this edge over here has got a little silver lining to it. So I'm going to come in with my mono eraser, establish that line, so to make sure he's nice and light. And now I'm going to judge my tonal values to see, do I have that contrast that I'm seeing on the reference photo? If the answer is no, then I'm going to take a look and see, is it this petal or the one behind it that needs to darken up? So in this case, us darkening that up, it has helped. He's not quite as dark as he needs to be. And I can also see this little edge here is also just off of that light. It's also a little bit darker. So I'm just very gently working in some extra tonal value over there as well. Okay, let's go to the H. Let's just get this little area over here a little bit darker on the back petal. Yeah, just like that. You see now you've got a nice little contrast happening over there. And we can see it's also going darker as it comes down here. And this becomes a lost line. There, I just got a little bit of a line from my initial sketch, which I'm erasing. As these two petals over here meet, they just become a lost line, because they meet and they become the same angle. Awesome, let's go around to over here. Okay, so over here, now we're starting to get this curling over effect from this petal. So the way we're going to shade that is the central area over here is darker, and then it goes lighter towards the two sides. So I'm going to start in the center, add some tonal value down, just make sure it is dark enough so that you can distinctly see it. And we can even go over to the 2H and just fade him outwards to that side and to this side over here. Just a nice gentle shading out to each side, and that's going to make him curl over. I think there we're reasonably okay with that guy. Over there. He really seems to be curling nicely. He came out, luckily enough, he came out nicely enough with the sponge. He formed his own little shading over there. Alright, so now I'm checking that edge and that edge. Am I getting my contrast that I need? No, I'm not. Do I need to go darker here? Or do I need to go lighter there? In this case, I need to go lighter over here. So I'll use my eraser and come back in and establish that found line over there. Okay, is there something that's not right? Something that needs to change? Yeah, there's quite a dark edge over there which doesn't belong there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the curl by darkening up this edge over here. And just shade him out towards the outside edge of the petal. In other words, we're just increasing the contrast of this little curve that we added in there. Yeah, that should be fine there like that. So now we've got a distinct, you can see where this one ends and that one starts. And that's what we need to do with every single petal. Cool, so look there, we've already done 1, 2, 3, 4 petals here. So we're moving on quite nicely, hey? Okay, so let's take a look. With this guy over here, there, looks like I didn't draw in a line. Let's add him in. He's around there, somewhere like that. Right, so let's take the reference photo. I think I can put him on this side. And maybe we can make him a little bit bigger. Yeah, probably like that. Then we can work on this little piece over here. There's another line that I see I didn't draw in, which is this guy over there. Alrighty, so I'm going to tap into my graphite dust and I'm going to start over here where this guy's at his darkest. And I'm going to work now on getting this. Sorry about that. I queued it up and I didn't press the button. So I'm going to get this corner here really, really dark. What happens is no light can get in here, so that's why he's so super dark. So by getting this really, really dark, by going over it multiple times with the graphite dust, until I get him as dark as that background, what you're doing is you're creating a ton of depth in this guy over here. And then from there, we're going to gradually just fade him out. Lighter and lighter. Till that edge over there. So all you'll do is just take the dust that's left and the graphite that's on the blender. Just work him out, and as he works out towards here, the dust gets less and less and less, and we should get the shading that we need. Nice little shadow being cast over there, so I'm working him in. And a nice shadow being cast over here too still. So if you do not go over the line, just re-establish it quickly so you don't lose it. Okay, let's get rid of that excess graphite dust. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my 8B pencil and just tidy up this little shading over here. I've got it as best I can with the sponge, but obviously it's not going to get you, or maybe you're lucky and you do get it right, but more often than not, it's not going to be perfect. So you do still now just come back in with your pencils and do those fine tuning. Remember the cloth is and the sponge is there just to get you 90% of the way. And this is now where your blending stumps also come in. So I'm going to use the flat point one. I'm actually even going to squeeze it like that to flatten it out. And what I'll sometimes even do is I'll even fold this thing backwards to give me a nice flat point. And you can just use that to get the finer shadings done. Because what this is now doing is not adding any new graphite dust like the sponge is. It's just taking the existing graphite and moving it around. So that's great. Right, so here I can see there's a distinct little cast shadow over here, so I'm just adding that in over there. So I'm just popping him in and fading him outwards. What happens with a shadow is it's really dark against the object, and then it gets lighter as you go further away from that object. Okay, let's establish this little edge over there. Right, so there's that guy done. Let's continue around over there. So I'll pick up a little bit more graphite dust. And now I'm going to start here where I see it's at its darkest. Where is it at its darkest? Can you see over here? In this little area there. There's where he's at his darkest. So that's where I'm going to put down. Well, that's where I'm going to start putting down the graphite. That's why I know you'll come out the darkest, because that's when I had the most graphite dust on the sponge. So you do want to now just look really carefully. And see how do these shadings go, because they're darkest over here. Then it goes lighter upwards. but it's not an even thickness of stuff. It's broad over here. It goes narrower to there, and then it goes narrow to there, and then there's a little piece where the tip of the petal is curling over and catching the light again. So all we can do in a situation like this is just try our best to get as close as we can with a sponge, because we know that's now our quickest drawing method, but it's not the most accurate drawing method. So you're going to work on getting it just as accurate as what you can. And then from there, you go over to your pencils and you fine tune. So I think we've got as much in there as what we can, so I'm going to darken this area up here even more. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to make sure that I get that edge of the next petal correct. Especially when you're working with a sponge, you quite often go over the line a little bit. It's normal. So you do have to just come back in and make sure you don't lose that little edge over there. Alright, so let's take a look. We've got the cast shadow, so work him in. And then see how does he fade out. So I'm not applying any pressure to the pencil whatsoever. I'm letting him do his own thing. If I need to go darker, I'm just simply going over the area more and more and more to get that more of the paper covered up. Okay, so I'm just going to use my cloth here just to smooth that out. Okay, it's coming over here. Just making sure they're not 100% straight and stuff. Add those little kinks and things, because that adds the character to the drawing. Okay, so in here is really deep, which means there's no light, which makes it really, really dark. So I'm pressing really hard there, straight out the bat, because I know he's not going to come lighter. But then from there, I am now going to just fade these colors lighter. Okay, it's a fine area, so I'm going to use the smaller blending stump and just work these colors into each other. Should be fine over there. Alright, let's establish this edge. Make sure he's nice and sharp by erasing him. And I'm just going to take a look. How does this petal curl over? So it does seem to be sort of darker over here. So this petal and there's another petal there. They sort of overlapping each other like this. So we've drawn some of this and we're drawing that bit sort of at the same time. So I'm going to add this dark in over here. Nice little dark corner over there. So pick up some new graphite dust, work him in, and then out. So just with little flicks like that. And this over here needs to go quite a bit lighter. So I think we may actually even just do a little bit of a shading over here. So look what happens with this little rolled piece over there. What's happening is that petal is curling over and then this piece is curling back around. So there's a little area over here that we can't see. So that's why here we need to have a found line, because there's an area here that we can't see. So I'm making sure I've got that little found line next to this highlight over here, so that you've got that contrast. Remember, contrast like that gives you distance. The more distance you've got, or the more distance you want to show, the more contrast you need to create there. That's why the darker areas are the deepest areas. There we've got the most distance, or the most depth. Can you see there how that guy's now coming up and around? So to fully bring that out, this area over here needs to be darker than that area over there, because he's going deeper in. This is higher up, that's deeper in. Does that make sense? So if you do have questions, just fire away. I am checking the chat box as we go along. So you can see I'm happy to sometimes use my artist license to even darken this up, darker than what it is. On the photograph, because a photograph you don't question, but a drawing you do. And besides, that gives us an opportunity to have just that little bit of extra depth and distance over there. Alrighty, cool. So now these two guys curl in underneath each other and they meet. So let's see, that guy comes around here like this. Let's just establish that. That edge over there. Make sure we've got him. That's cool. And then that distance disappears. There's no distance over there. So we need a nice sharp found line over there. And then that distance disappears over here, like this. So there we have to fade these guys into each other so that their tonal values meet. Alrighty, let's take a look. We've got this edge over here. Just A little bit too, the dark is a little bit too far. So I'm just using my eraser. You're essentially drawing with the eraser just by lifting up some of that again. Okay, this over there, a little bit darker over here in this little center bit. In other words, it's a shading from here. And it quickly goes lighter towards the central bit over here. So again, I've added a little bit more contrast than what there is. It comes up over here, and then he comes down and he meets that. So for all we know, that's an edge of a petal over there. So that was quite a complicated little piece, eh? Did yours come out all right? Fabulous. There's a nice little quick easy one. So we'll just take a sponge and he's light here and he goes darker towards the inside. No surprises there, eh? Darker towards the inside to get our depth. So I'll start on the inside bit like this and just gradually work up, and as I work up I'm pressing lighter and lighter. And less and less. Okay, let's see. We do have a little bit of a dark edge over there because there's a shadow being cast. So we'll add that in. And then I use my pencil just to finalize any shadings. Pencil and eraser. If it's gone too dark somewhere, just use an eraser. So what I'll often do with the eraser, you're not thinking, but it's not so easy to erase nice shadings. The way you do it is you erase basically like cross-hatching. So when you're really, really close, you can actually see those cross hatches. But when you stand back at normal viewing distance, you don't see them. It looks like a shading. And then, of course, you do not come back. You cannot come back in with your pencil and just smooth out any shadings as well. So there is now a concept called look and compare, which is quite important in a situation like this. Because what you tend to do is you think, if I'm looking at this one, okay, that's the darkest area and that's the lightest area. So he must be white and he must be black. And then you come to here and okay, this is the area is the lightest and he's the darkest. He must be black and he must be white. But it's not like that. There, that's not black and that's not white. That there may not be white and that there may not be pitch black. So what you want to do is look at, first of all, at your reference photo and compare the tonal value that you see there versus what you've now got on your drawing. And then the other time you also want to look and compare is look and compare with the tonal values of the surrounding petals. In other words, this area I'm doing here, this tonal value that I'm seeing here, Where do I have a similar tonal value on my drawing? So if I look at it, that seems to be over here, seems to be roughly that tonal value. So then these two must also match on my drawing. So that's how you keep checking yourself, so that you don't go gradually darker and darker and darker as you draw, or gradually lighter and lighter and lighter. You keep consistent across the entire drawing. You'll be amazed, it happens all the time. Okay, so I'm just continuing to build up this guy's casting a shadow on that one. So I'm just continuing to work up that tonal value over there. It's dark right up against it, and then that, because of the fading out, it goes lighter and lighter away from it. And that's how you've got your depth. And then in there's, you've got that highlight. So here you can see you've got a little bit of a curling over piece. Maybe I can just move that down. Sorry about that. I'll move that down. So there, this tonal value and that tonal value is basically the same thing. So what I do is just add the thinnest little pencil line over there. Very thin. And that separates the two from each other. Alright, cool. Let's tackle that guy. So I'll pick up just a little bit of graphite dust. He's darkest over here, so I'm starting over there. That's a little too dark, so I'm going to smash it, smash the sponge onto my spare piece of paper to get rid of some of that excess dust that's in there. So that as I continue now, it won't come out as dark. See, there's lots of little cast shadows happening all the way along here, like that. So I'm using just the tip to get right up against the line as best I can. And now I'm going to use the side for the fading out area, or the fading out stage. Gradually making my way to the tip of that petal, because I know he's at his lightest, but he's not white. He's not white. There is tonal value here. There's a little bit of white as that guy curls around and points more towards the light. He's becoming lighter over there. Yeah, it should be there like that. Okay, so let's say, for example, you've not done that, and now it's come out too dark. What do you do then? You can't sit there with your mono eraser and erase the whole thing. It'll take you forever. It'll go all stripy. So what you do then is you take your kneaded eraser, and now what I do is I'll just shape it so that is that same width, but it must be a nice, just a smooth tube. So just do this, just to get him smooth. And you just squish him until he's the correct width, like that. And now you can roll this guy over there like this, and he picks up a nice even amount of tonal value over the entire area. And little bit by little bit, you lighten him up until he is the correct tonal value. As easy as that. So I'm happy with my lights now. The darks have now gone a little bit too light, but that's fine. That gives me now a second chance. So I'm going to be a little bit more careful this time, not go too high up with the cloth, with the sponge, sorry. And then finish off the rest with the with a pencil. Alrighty, so over here we've got a nice little shadow all in between over there. So I'm going to get it dark over there because that's going to give us distance in that little piece. Dark right up against that petal. Give us maximum contrast and then fade it out. So this stage I'm only using H2H and the 6 or the 8B. If you have to, go ahead, use other pencils like HB or a 2B or so on. By all means, go ahead, use them. Just so far I haven't needed them because the sponge has done the work of all the in-between pencils. So the 8B is getting us the darker darks, the accurate little bits of the darkest darks that we need. And the light pencils is doing those little light shading bits that the sponge also can't do. Yeah, that's cool over there. Alright, so we haven't done any work with a cloth for a while, so let's just soften all these guys out that we haven't done. So every now and again I do just move my finger to a cleaner spot, because otherwise this cloth gradually picks up more and more graphite, and then he starts doing his own shadings. You don't want that. That could undo all the hard work you've done up to this point. Okay, so that's cool over there. Yeah, let's take a look. There, just need that little bit of a highlight running along there, eh? So I'm going to just squeeze my Kneaded Eraser again, just so you've got that little paddle over there. I'm just going to touch it. And that's giving us that little edge over there. Just a bit of a semi-found line in that area there. Just like that. Alrighty, so our opportunities to use the sponge is running out quite quickly now. Let's see, we can do that guy over there. He's darkest here. Okay, get that in. I'm going to just get rid of all the excess by smashing it on my paper. And let's just gently smudge whatever what is left there to get that shading sorted over there. Awesome. Okay, let's check ourselves. So you'll see I didn't quite come up to that edge over there. I need to make sure that's accurate. So I stopped just before then. This one is casting a shadow on that one, so I'm working that shadow in over there. And to get the depth over here, this guy needs to be darker and darker towards that inside piece. Then there the light does come in, so it's not doesn't go quite as dark. So it's all the way back to a H pencil again. Okay, this is a nice little gentle fade out over there. Let's make sure we've got that little edge there nice and sharp. Just a thin little line on that, just the edge of that petal. And why have you got that little thin line there? That's because the petal itself has thickness. It's not paper thin. It's very thin, but it's not paper thin. It's got that little edge. So that's what that is. That just shows you the thickness of the petal. Alright, let's take a look. This is also not too pure white over here. So I'm just adding some tonal value there. So that there is when the cloth also works quite nice. You can take your cloth, because he doesn't lay down as much graphite as the sponge. You can just gently work that guy in over there. Right, I'm happy with that. So these guys here, they're now too thin. We're never going to get them done with a sponge or anything like that. So then we'll have to do with a pencil, unfortunately. We get spoilt with that the sponge, eh? So I'm going to let's start with that petal. And let's get the darkest bit done. So it seems to be really dark, almost in a bit of a triangle over there. So what I think what's happening is you've got the same thing as what's happening over there. You've got a flat area of the petal, and then what we're seeing most of it is just that little curling over tip over there. So I'll color this flat area in solid. And I'm pressing hard. That's the final bit on that one. Nothing more to do there. There's no shadings, no nothing else. Like that. And then from here, now we're going to see how does that guy shade. He's gradually lighter towards the outside, but he's also curling in. Here's higher up, and there's more in. He's curling in underneath this petal. So this area over here is also darker. So I'm going to shade this guy now in as best I can using this pencil. Maybe what we can do with a sponge is just lay down a basic tonal value there. So we're not trying to get rid of white. Or we're not starting from white and trying to get rid of everything. Nothing over there is white. So that's now just allowing us to get to the correct tonal value and stuff quicker. Okay, so very gently just putting in these tonal values best I can for now. And then we'll just smooth them out using the blending stump. There's a very thin little cast shadow over there. Also just showing depth so that you can see. You see in, but you're seeing in like really sharp. Literally like a cliff over there. Okay, and I'm going to run just a really thin line of that all the way up here. And then here he broadens out again. So we'll start dark. And just gently fade him out. You can maybe almost also just use the blending stump to do the shading work over there. And this guy is quite light, so maybe I'll even just go to an H. Start blending from the inside outward. Let's go to a 2H here for the inside, or the H for the inside. Just for that little shading over there. Alright, let's see now we can do the... Well, I suppose while we're busy with this petal, let's curve him around to that top area over here. Let's see, it does seem to go gradually darker and darker. No, it doesn't. He goes lighter. Here's a little light piece. This is that part of the drawing where you have to really keep your wits about you because everything is now really close together. So this piece is going underneath that petal, so I know he's being cast a shadow on. So he has to go darker, so I'll get that darker over there. And then we'll shade him lighter outwards like that. Alright, let's do the next guy. So he's also just got a base little tonal value, so I'll use the sponge just to, you could use a cloth as well. Just to get that base, that white of the paper gone. Alright, so he's highest over here and going inwards over there. So this here, you need to have a quick little shading to get a lost line over here. And that will show that this is going inwards. Let's do that. Okay, and then here we've got this beautiful little curled over edge. So I'm going to use my eraser and get that as white as I can. He runs all the way along there like that. And look at that nice height that you've got there now. Right, let's keep increasing this contrast until he's correct. Just darkening that up, because this is also now curling in underneath this front petal. So there's a shadow being cast, and it's fading out. Let's use our blending stump just to smooth all that out. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so that petal curves around over there, and then there he starts tucking in underneath that guy over there. So maybe we can just take our sponge and let's get this top, that little bit over there. It's quite dark on that inside bit. Yeah, I think that's about as good as we're going to go over there. Right, I think I'm going to Let's go a little bit closer in on this bit, because now things are becoming a little bit more difficult to see, hey? So just give me a second to focus in on that. Cool. Alright, so it's nice and dark there, and this dark here lifts the one in front of it up. And it's darkest in this little corner over here. So I'll darken that up, and then start laying off the pressure on the pencil. Here's also having a little shadow cast on him over there. So that can also go a little bit darker there. Yeah, there we go. No, nothing over here is white. It's all got tonal value, so I'm making sure I've got some tonal value down there. Okay, let's keep moving in. This guy here, there's lots of little bits and stuff, eh? So I think let's start with the dark. Let's just establish where all these little dark bits are. So I'll put that down over there. Then those darks seem to come around in this area over here. So I'm going to just plot some stuff out here, just really lightly for myself. Because it's got like a bit of an abstract shape happening over there. So I'll do my best to figure it out. Comes to there, and then there's another thin little petal coming there, and a thin petal coming over there, like that. So all this is dark. Quite crazy. And if we don't get it 100%, doesn't matter. Who's going to know? Who's going to know? Alright, so I'm going to block all this in. I'm going to start by the areas that I know are pitch black. Keep them nice and dark, pressing hard. Really hard on the pencil. I want to really fill up the tooth of the paper. Okay, so now this guy over here, there's a little bit of that petal that just fades in over there, or fades out over there, one of the two. So I'm going to bring him around there like that. All around him is dark. And then this over here. It starts off super dark over here. It does go a little bit lighter to this area over here. And here's also a bit of shading work happening. And then again here on this inside bit is super dark. There's full distance over there. So I can see my shape isn't 100%, but I'm happy that I've got it more or less. Well, I think that'll be close enough for this guy. Alright, let's see what happens. Here is dark, and then it gradually fades a little bit lighter towards the top of the drawing and towards the left. So that's some depth that's gradually getting less and less over here. So I'm happy showing that, shading that in. And there's a bit of a shading happening over there. So now this front petal is now, the tip of the petal is obviously curling over a little bit. And he's now casting a shadow and he's kinking over here. Okay, let's see, none of this is white, so I'll just do that. Alright, let's blend some stuff in. So you find when you've put pencil down, it's always got a little bit of, you can still see the tooth of the paper. So then working over it with a blending stump does help to fill up that texture of the paper even more. So you'll find that that's why when you blend with a blending stump, things look darker after you've blended than they did before. And that's simply because you're getting now into those little grooves and things of the paper. Yeah, let's see, this can go a little bit darker. That funny little kinky piece over there. So I'm just fading it out with a blending stump to either side. That's all good. Alright, now things are starting to make a little bit more sense, so I can get these shapes a little bit more accurate. Alrighty. So now these little last center pieces, I can tell you with good authority that you more often than not are going to get yourself lost. Because I don't know. I often get lost. And if you do, it doesn't matter. So what? There's so much going on here that as long as you get the basics done, you'll be okay. It's fine if you get a little lost. So what are the basics? The basics is you've got high contrast between one area and the next. So what you want to do is make sure you have a really nice sharp pencil. So I'm just going to sharpen. You can see the tip of mine is now not quite as sharp as it needs to be anymore for this area. So I'm just going to sharpen him up on a bit of sandpaper. Just to get a nice little sharp tip over there. You can also use a mechanical pencil. It works so well with this. Yeah, there we go. Nice sharp chisel point over there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to lay in all these little dark edges as best I can. Don't worry about shadings and stuff like that. Just add in all those little dark shapes wherever you see them. So forget that this is even a rose. All you're seeing now is just little random shapes. Alrighty. That's already kind of the worst done and dusted there. There's another little light mark over there. And now we're getting back to bits that we can see. That wasn't so bad, was it? Okay, so I can see this bit, so I'm going to just quickly shade him in. And then there's this really dark guy next to him. Okay, so now you've got all those darks in there. Now I'm going to just take a sponge or whatever, and I'm just going to go over this whole area over here. So what are you doing? You're just adding yourself tonal value down there. And now you're going to look for your lights. And you take your eraser, and you work in your lightest lights. More often than not, they're going to be right next to the darkest darks. Okay, so look what you've done now. You've added in the deep and you've added in the high. And when you just did that little shading with the sponge, you added in the sides. So you've got the deepest bits over there, and that's the highest bit over there. So all you need to do now is go and shade between the highest bit and the darkest bit. So start by the darkest bit and fade your way up. Each one of these guys. And voila, there you go. There's your petal shading on this inside bit. Done and dusted. And by using that little trick, you can literally create your own. It doesn't even need to be the real thing. If you get lost here, you just do your own thing. Draw in some random shaped lines and then shade from the dark through to the light to show that it's coming up and out. There we go. You're going to find yourself at a point where suddenly you know where you are again. Then you're out of the woods. And like I say, will it look perfectly like the original photo? No, it won't be good enough. Promise you that. Because you're going to see the overall picture. When you stand back. And all this will make 100% sense. Great. Let's see where we're at. What do we still need to do? There, that guy over there. So he's now way too light to do with a sponge. So I'm going to use the cloth. So this cloth has now already got graphite on it. But if it doesn't, just put your finger inside, rub it over the flat piece of your paper. And then just come in here and just add that. Just that initial little bit of tonal value. That gets you started. Then you can complete the shading with the pencils. So I add just enough tonal value just so that I can see that little lip on the edge of that petal there, like that. Okay, next guy. That guy's quite dark. But again, I don't think we can get in there with a sponge. So I'm going to add as much of these dark in as what I can using the cloth. I'm getting as close to the edges as what I can without going over them. That's probably going to be as good as we can get. Okay, let's see this edge over here, super dark. Nice cast shadow being thrown over here. And that one is also casting a nice shadow on this guy over here. All the way down. And that found line separates those two. Okay, I'll start off here super dark in this area. Then we'll just gradually lay off on the pressure on the pencil. And that'll give us the shading that we're looking for. Okay, let's see, that tip over there is also not white. It can go darker. There's an extra little petal over there. And that guy hasn't had his little light edge lifted out yet, so we can pop him in. Alright, now we are definitely on that home stretch. We are nearly done. So I'm going to lighten this guy up. But if you look on the photo, you'll see it isn't as light as that. But that's fine. You lighten it up to get the petal edge. Take your blending stump and just go over him. And that'll give a little bit of graphite onto that. And voila, he's got his correct tonal value. This one also just fades out a little bit, so I'm just adding a little bit of cross-hatching shading there just to soften that. That hard edge there. Yes, let's zoom out again. Yeah, let's go to there. Let's finish off these last two petals. They're nice and big, so we can go back to the sponge again. Let's see, this guy here isn't that dark, so I'm going to just smash off the worst. This is the darkest area over here. So I'll start there. And then he sort of shades diagonally like that, eh? So he's darkest there. And he's darkest around here. I'm going to shade him right up against that edge. I can just lift out that the thickness of the petal there again. Yeah, I think that's about as good as we need over there. Let's smooth a few things out over here that we haven't smoothed out yet. Alrighty, so I'm now a little bit dark over there, so I'm just tapping over there just to lighten him back up again. Cool. And I'm going to make sure I've got a nice little cast shadow over here. That's going to lift up this petal from the one we're drawing now. So you put down that tonal value, you just quickly fade it out. And while I'm at it, I'll just use the pencil to smooth out those shadings there a little bit. Okay, let's get this edge in over here. And the last one. So he's not super dark over there. So plenty of graphite there like that. It's super dark over here as this guy cools in underneath this petal. And then he's super dark over here, like this. And then there's another little, a lost petal over there. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to go over this a few times over here. Great, now we can fade him in. Very gently, no pressure whatsoever. And I'm going to make sure I leave it just a little bit of contrast over here, that those guys don't fade perfectly into each other. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to smash the sponge again, just to get rid of all of that excess graphite, because from here we just want a nice smooth gradual shading, and we don't want that to go too dark over there. In this area we can see a little bit of texture in the petal. So I'm just adding a few little lines over there, but I'm not going to worry too much about texture in this drawing today. I want this to be a nice easy one. Okay, that guy over there, let's quickly just fade him. That should be peanuts for you now. That shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. Great, let's get rid of any excess graphite. That's going to mess us around. And now just to finish off, I'll use the cloth, because this here isn't white. It does have tonal value. So I'll just add that last little bit of tonal value in with the cloth, because I've got more control with that. And I think maybe I'll add in just a little bit more tonal value than what I need. Then we can use the eraser just to work in a few little odd details and stuff. So here I'm making sure I'm getting a nice little fade out again happening over here, nice little shading, because it's not showing that this petal is round. It's really the only one of the outside bit of the petal that we can see. Yeah, it should be fine there like that for now. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Okay, get rid of any dust again. And let's start here with this curling over piece. Let's establish that. There we go. Right, let's take a look. That little curling over piece tucks in underneath this petal over here. So this petal casts a shadow on him, so I'm starting there. And I'm going to just gradually fade him lighter towards the outside. Like that, because that's now giving us that depth over there like that. This guy's curling around like that, so it's fading away from the light over here. So this edge also needs to go darker, just to make it look round. That's cool. Here I'm going to make sure I've got a nice sharp edge against this. And that's going to show us the distance between that curl over bit and here. Awesome. And now let's just take our kneaded eraser. Just keep him in that little pinched chisel point of yours. I'm just moving down like this. Just going to work in a few little highlights, and that should also now give us a bit of texture. So we do want this texture to be quite subtle. So as you work this out, you're probably going to find you're going to have areas like this that are too dark. Leave them at that for now. It's okay. Doesn't matter. I'll show you what we do. For the lighter areas, I'm now going to take this guy and just drag the flat edge of it over there like this. So that's now lifting up some of the lights and the darks, and that evens out that tonal value over there. Like that. See there? So now we have a lot more subtle texture. This area over here, our texture is now too light. So what you do over there is now you take your cloth, you start here with the dark, you work it back over the light. So now what you're doing is you're darkening up those light bits that you've lifted out, and that evens it out in that area. So with the one we've darkened up the lights, and this one we've lightened up the darks. You can do this now as many times as you want until you're happy with the effect. Yeah, I think at this point I'm happy with that. Over here, alright, let's do this. I'm going to take that, get rid of him. What you want to do now is stand back and look at all your different tonal values and stuff, especially the ones you did right in the beginning. Because what happens is when you start, you've got white paper. Then everything you put down looks dark when it's not. So now that you've got all your contrasts established here, now it's easy to see little mistakes and find areas where you can improve your tonal values and so on. For example, here I can see this needs to go darker, and this is where the cloth comes in really nicely, because the cloth does those smaller tonal value adjustments. And it does it quickly too. Okay, so I've now got more contrast over there, so he's standing out better. This guy over here, I can see he's too dark, so I can continue to darken him up even more. So I'll start off here by that rounded edge. I'm using the side of my finger to make sure I get that edge nice over there. Look there, instantly is curling over better, right? Okay, I'll fade him out there. But I'll leave that top edge light, because it does give us that nice little rounded bit. And then also to get that distance, we need to find a found line over here. So we'll pop him in. Here, this guy is tucking in underneath there, so he needs to go darker. So here we need a lost line at that area over there. Like that. Let's get our blender and just smooth that out. Let's use the broad one. There we go. See, by going darker, look how nicely it tucks in underneath there now. And then here, we also need a nice little sharp found line over here. So that found line over there lifts this guy up. Can you see that? Instantly he stands higher than the other one. And we can still see that guy's rounding out because we've got that nice contrast there. And let's see, what we haven't wiped this guy with the cloth yet to just soften everything out. Get those shadings and stuff nice and smoother. There, that should be fine there. sure that's nice and bright. Yeah, like I say, now you can just stand back and just check those little tonal values and things of yours. I think at this stage I'm reasonably happy. I'm going to leave him as is. The more you fiddle now, the more accurate this guy becomes, the more realistic you're going to get him. So all I'm concentrating now is just getting my little found lines. Make sure there's a found line between each petal so that we can see the distance. And if you need to, feel free, increase your contrasts more than what you see that on the photo, to make sure that you can see the difference between your different petals. Okay, and just over here, I want to get a little bit of a contrast here so that I can see that the one petal is curling in underneath the other. So I'm just making that line there a little bit more found here at the start. And then as we go down inwards, it becomes gradually more and more lost. Because if you liked this lesson, please like and subscribe. That way YouTube knows it's the information you've got here today is valuable and it can show it to other people as well. Alright, yeah, I think let's call it a day on this guy. Let's go to there. So thank you for joining me in the class today. If you did enjoy today's class, the link is on the screen there below. You can go and get access to hundreds more of my classes. There's pencil drawing lessons, there's oil painting, there's acrylic painting, there's watercolor, there's pastel drawing, pen and ink, beautiful sketching course, tons and tons of stuff. So go and take a look at my website on the link below. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Take care. Guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.